um, just present the our key speaker. I'm happy to see you here on another Friday morning, and I'm very sure that we are in store for an excellent presentation by Miss Moore. Um, she will be speaking on hashtag Adulting 101, and I have an idea of what adulting, because I mean I've been using it a lot, but I wanted to find out, being the historian, um, what might have informed it in terms of being such a buzzword. Um, because I think many of us have, myself would have felt like what is termed adulting, but we would not have been using that word. And I found out that it's only come into our language in terms of using the word adult as a verb to adult in the last 10 to 5 years. And I came across a text which I think I might be interested in buying, by an American author, Adulting: How to Become a Grown Up in 535 Easy-ish Steps. I think I still need a book to tell me about that, because it is never easy. And I remember when I was younger, in my teenage years, I would say, I can't wait to be an adult, because when I'm an adult, I won't be sinning, I won't be getting things wrong, I will know what I want, because as a teenager, I thought my brain was all over the place. And some of you are still teens, some of you are more mature, but I'm sure that all of us can benefit from this presentation today. So let's open in a word of prayer, and then I will introduce our speaker. Father in heaven, we want to come before you this morning to ask you to guide and protect our young people. We ask you that you may keep them from the dangers that are present in the world. We ask you, Lord, that you may be with them as they go through all the different experiences that might come before them, whether it be poor health, joy, sorrow, loneliness, um, but success and failure. Father, we ask you to be gracious on them, to give them the courage and the strength that they might be able to make the right decisions as they journey through life. We pray, O Lord, that you give them power through your Holy Spirit, and may they know that you are there to guide them along their way. We make this prayer to you, O Lord, in Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, so I have known Miss Sadia Moore, I think, for a few years. I'm proud to say that we are country women. We are both from St. Lucia, and Miss Moore is currently the chair of the Department of Psychology, Behavioral Sciences, Criminology, and Sociology in the School of Social Sciences. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Behavioral Sciences with an emphasis in sociology, and the Masters of Arts degree in Educational Psychology from Andrews University in Michigan. She has been lecturing at the USC for the past 6 years, and she thoroughly enjoys that experience. She loves being among young people and imparting information to them. And as part of her future plans, Ms. Moore intends to pursue advanced studies in mental health and nutritional health, an area which she is particularly interested in. Her long-term goal is to work towards the achievement of emotional health awareness and optimum nutritional health education, because she intends to positively impact the lives of the populations within our Caribbean region. And I've listened to Ms. Moore present on a number of occasions, and I've always learned something significant and enjoyed her presentation. And so I'm assuming the same will be the case for this presentation. So Ms. Moore will present, will provide, after she's presented, there will be an opportunity for questions and responses to those questions. So Ms. Moore, you can take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Terencia Joseph. Thank you for your lovely introduction. And I would just like to thank everyone for being here. And I hope that we have more students coming because this is an interesting presentation and a very interesting topic, Adulting 101. Now, one of the things I want to remind you about today's presentation, you really need to make sure that you listen and engage in active listening. So when you hear with your ears, and when you listen with your brain. So don't just sit there and listen and it sounds all nice and cute and insightful, but I want you to pull out your pens, take out your notepad, write, take notes, because this topic is a topic that is really going to enhance your life and make a difference and impact you. Now, today's objectives, and let me share my PowerPoint presentation. So let me share my screen. All right. So you can see my screen. So today's objectives, we will be looking at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to understand the decision-making process, learn about some skills that will help you to think critically, appreciate the concept of self-awareness, and be aware of important self-management skills. So far from what I've said, you realize that today we're going to be talking a lot about skills because adulting is really about developing your skills. Now, I remember when I was a little girl, remember when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I was so excited and intrigued with the idea of being an adult, of being told that you have to wait. I was always told, no, you have to wait when you're an adult, when you're an adult, when you're an adult. And I was so excited, I couldn't wait. When I heard my parents and people talking about they're so tired, I used to look at them and I used to wonder, but how comes they're so tired? I don't feel tired. I feel so alive and energetic. And when I became an adult, now that I'm an adult, I realized that to be an adult is hard work, but to be an adult is an inevitable fact and thing that we all share in common. So, what is the definition of adulting? Adulting is basically a verb which means to do grown up things and have responsibilities such as finding full time employment, paying rent, and owning your own car. Of course, it is still much more than that definition. Now, there are basic skills for life that are not always taught in the classroom. And sometimes it can be quite challenging to navigate life successfully in a world where skills are critical for survival, for development, for growth. So for today's presentation is broken down into four parts, right? So what does it mean to be an adult? To be an adult, it means to develop the art of making choices. It means to better to think. So this part is entitled You Better Think. It also means to ask the question, who am I? Who are you? If I were to ask you the question right now, who are you? Some of you, it might be easy to answer, but many of you will spend some time to think. Not that it's a difficult question, but it requires a lot of thinking. And the other part, or the last part, is entitled, I have control. I have control. So these four factors or four areas, this is what it means to be an adult. Now, when you think about life, life and living is all about the choices that you make. So you might think, what is the hype about the choices that I make? I can do it. I can do as I please with my own life. Now, whilst this is true that you can do as you please with your own life and what you do, this way of thinking can surely work against you. So life is all about making decisions. Every day that you wake up, you make several decisions. According to some researchers from Cornell University, 2007, they basically said that a person makes approximately 226 decisions about food every single day. Now think about it, stop and think about it. If someone makes 226 decisions, according to those researchers, every day about food, much less other aspects of your life, much less how you dress, etc. So there are lots of choices that you'd have to make daily, and some choices could be daily, such as food. What will you eat? Your choice of clothes. What do you want to wear? How would you like to wear your hair? Would you like it out? Would you like it curly? Would you like it straight? Would you like a shortcut? What do you want? The colors that you like to wear. How might you envision yourself on your wedding day? Now there's some now those choices are very easy, but there are some choices that are more challenging, such as dating, right? Finding a life partner. That could be very challenging. Whether you want to have children, there are some persons who want kids and some people who don't want kids, and some people cannot effectively explain why I don't want it. What you want to study at university. Now, all of you are university students, and I'm sure that as you sit and you listen to me speak and you think about the decision to come to university, or even more so, the decision to actually make a choice as to your degree, for some of you, that was very challenging, and some of you, you are still trying to figure it out, and that's okay. What do you want to do after accomplishing your first degree at university? So some of you may never think about it. Some of you think about it only in your last year, last semester. But whether you begin to think about it whilst at your university, at the end of your experience, it is still something that could be pretty stressful, trying to figure out what you want, making choices about the friends that you keep and who and what you want in your life, making choices about your money, your finances, and your future. All of these are things that has the potential to be very challenging if you do not understand the decision making process. Now, the decisions and the choices that you make will have good outcomes, and it will sometimes have bad outcomes. So therefore, as an individual, as a young adulted, your ability to make a choice is something that is very powerful. And I personally think that it's one of the most beautiful things about life, our ability to choose what we want, who we want to be, etc. And I'm saying it lightly or in quotation marks because there are lots of different factors that can significantly influence that. Now, for some people, making a choice about something important or serious is stressful, which I said. So let's define what is meant by decision making. So decision making is simply a person's ability to use effective problem-based and conflict resolution strategies to resolve issues that requires a systematic model to approach the problems that occur daily. Now, that definition, we will be breaking it down. It is not as confusing or challenging as it sounds. So I want to speak now to, in looking at the topic of decision making. So let me put it in my own words. Decision making is basically the art of making a choice between two possible solutions or finding a solution to a problem. That is essentially what a decision is all about. Now, there are some things that gets into the way of making decisions. So for example, I have a list here of about 5 things that I will share with you. Your emotions. Your emotions are fun, they're exciting, they allow you to experience life in lots of different ways. So, for example, your 4 primary emotions is fear, anger, sadness, happiness, and all other emotions that you can possibly have comes out of those 4 primary emotions. So, your emotions makes life fun. It makes life exciting. I met a man sometime a few years ago, and he said to me that his mother had passed away. And I asked him, I said, my condolences, and I'm so sorry, and how have you been? And I was so empathetic. And he said to me, Sadia, quit being so empathetic. And I said, but you just lost your mother. And he said to me, it is important and sometimes necessary to be in a state of sadness, because out of sadness you're able to appreciate happy moments. All right, again, talking about emotions and talking about decision making and getting you thinking. If you are angry and you have to make a decision, that could potentially create a big problem for you and the other party or parties involved. If you are fearful and you have to make a decision, that is something that is very, very, very challenging. And today, I'm going to be an adult and I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig today, right? Now, if you were to ask me, what is one of the most frightening decisions that I have ever made? And I would say when I was in my 20s, the decision to come out of a relationship when I was in my early 20s. So I asked myself some hard questions. I asked myself, what vision do I want for my life? How do I envision my family life? What path was I on and what path was that individual on? what how has the relationship been for the past 3 4 years? What precedent has been set for the future? And the answers to those questions were not pretty. It made me sad, it made me cry, and I made a decision when I didn't want to make that decision, but I made it because I did not allow my feelings and my emotions to control what I needed to do and to continue and to be aligned with my vision for my life. So again, your emotions can significantly impact the choices that you make. Another thing that gets in the way of making good decisions would be, I call it modernization or the age of information. We live in a modern world, a time where information has there are many different okay, let me use the example of cell phones. We have cell phones, or rather technology, and as a result of technology, we have access to social media, more access to books, more access to YouTube videos, and because of that, we are constantly distracted, and your focus becomes something that is difficult. Let me give you a perfect example. Yesterday I came home and I did some roasted corn. And I was eating my corn and I felt that I needed to be on my phone. So I pulled my phone and I pulled my iPad and I put everything back. And I said, no, it is okay. Sit, reflect, enjoy what you're eating, and move on to the next thing. So sometimes you need to do that to be able to make wise decisions. You need to have a clear mind. Mental fatigue, sometimes your mind becomes so saturated, which piggybacks on what I just said. Your mind becomes so saturated that you have to make a decision about something that is so important, such as what to study at university. Should you move to another country? Should you not move to another country? In making that decision, you're also influenced by the ideas of people, of what you ought to do, what your parents think you should do, what your friends think you should do, and of course, the trends that exist in society. So again, it is important to take it step by step. Another thing that gets in the way of making good decisions would be understanding yourself. It was Aristotle who once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And that is a very loaded statement. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. That is a statement that you need to write down. You need to sit. You need to think about it in your quiet time, think critically about it. It basically says the more you understand yourself, or rather, you are aware of yourself, the more successful you are at making decisions. So to understand yourself is really to ask yourself questions and to be honest with the responses of those questions. Another thing that gets in the way is not having enough information. Sometimes sometimes we do not have enough information to make an informed choice, and because of that, you can make a bad choice. Perception about life, if you're too optimistic or if you're too negative, right? And by being too optimistic, if you're too hopeful or too positive. Now I know this sounds like an oxymoron, because you're always told to be positive, to have a positive outlook on life, and that is so true and that is important. But if you are too positive. And when I say positive, I speak to positive in the sense of having unrealistic ways of thinking or outcomes of people or situations when everything is pretty clear, then that is not being wise and that is not being smart, right? If you are too negative, for some people, they are so negative about every single thing. A few years ago, my mother went to Cyprus. It was her birthday and she wanted to do something fun and something different. And she went with her best friend. And for a few days she was in Cyprus by herself with nobody. And I was so frightened. I was so worried and scared. And my mother kept telling me to relax. She's an adult and she's living her life. And sometimes you're just too safe. You just need to live life, right? So I thought that that was very funny. So again, if you're too negative about experiences and you always keep thinking that the worst thing will happen, sometimes you prevent yourself from enjoying or having beautiful experiences in life. Another thing that gets in the way of the decisions that you make would be your previous experiences. So some of you might have had experiences that really touched you in such a way that you feel repulsed, that you never want to go for that, or you never want to do that, or you might still be angry. And as a result of that, the choice that you will make now does not help you. It actually takes you further from personal growth, from advancement, and even from having a happy life. And lastly, your ability to think, your ability to think. There's one thing that is known as metacognition. So metacognition is basically your ability to think about yourself, how, or in my own words, how you think about your thinking. So if you do not understand how you think, how you perceive life, how you perceive problems, you approach very narrow way of looking at life, of looking at the world. We might have a one-track tunnel vision of how we look at the world. And some of us have a very flexible and open way of thinking. So when you have a flexible and open way of thinking, you are able to look at situations or possible problems and apply perspective from various perspectives to it. So these are the things that can get in the way of adulting or the decisions that you make. So it is important. What is the importance of making decisions? I'm just going to browse through this. Your choices determines your life, right? Your choices impact how you spend your time, and your choices speak to your quality of relationships. So it is very important to make wise choices. So what are some necessary skills for decision making? Now, one thing before I speak to this, one thing I want you to remember is the reality of life. Accept that reality, accept that fact that there will always be problems and you will always have to make decisions. So don't sit there and think that this is not for me. I need 5 or 6 more years and then I'm going to make that decision. That is unrealistic thinking and that is going to hurt you. So, what are some necessary skills for decision making? Your ability to solve problems. So, how are you able to solve problems? How do you approach a problem or situation? Do your emotions get in the way? What do you do? What is your strategy? What is your technique? Do you walk away? Do you stop and think? Do you react? Are you impulsive? Also, your ability to make good judgments and be wise. Now, making good judgment and being wise comes with time and experience. But when you tune your mind in that direction, it's something you begin to pay attention to. And wisdom also happens vicariously by looking at life, by looking at people in your community, people in society, and even to a certain extent, television. Your ability to reason, right? Using the facts and information that you have to be able to make a choice, and your ability to be creative, all right? Thinking outside the box. So how do you make good decisions? So to make, and this is where the art or the science behind decision making is. This is really the science right there. Making good choices, identifying the problem. So you have to sit and ask yourself, what is the real problem? Many times there is a problem, but there's also what I deem to be a pseudo problem, where you think that the real problem, you think that the pseudo problem is the real problem, but that is not the real problem. That is secondary. So sometimes you need to stop and spend some time thinking carefully about what the problem is. And how you do that is you ask questions and you dissect it. You ask yourself, what is the real problem? How are you able to identify what is the real problem? Now, it's also something that's very subjective and not too objective, because based on your situation, you would know what you look at as it relates to helping you to identify factors that could help you to identify what the problem is. Second step to making good choices, trying to understand how you feel about the problem. So you need to ask yourself, how does this problem make me feel, and why do I feel this way? So you need to think. A few years ago, I was speaking to this lady who was in a very toxic relationship, married lady. And she asked me what I thought, and I speak my mind, I'm sorry. And I said to her, I don't usually tell people what I think they should do, they should leave or not. And I said to her, what would be so bad? I insinuated it. I said to her, what would be so bad if you left him? What is the, I just was asking a lot of questions. And she said to me, what will the church think, and how will God see me? So again, sometimes, and I use this example to tell you that you need to understand, are the feelings that you have, is it really impacted by the things that are important? Is it impacted by people? How does that impact your life? And you got to think critically about it. The third step to making good choices would be information. Do you have enough information about that problem, the crisis, the situation? Do you have enough information? So you ask yourself, what do I know about this problem? So it is important to gather as much information as you can. And gathering information is asking questions. So again, like I said at the start, today's presentation, it causes you to engage your mind. So I want you to think about what I'm saying and pay attention. That is adulting as well. The next step in making a good choice is that the risk. In everything you do, there might be a risk. Sometimes the risk could be a positive one, or sometimes the risk could be a negative one. So when you think of the word risk, don't always associate it in the negative. There's something good that could come out of it. So you ask yourself questions such as, when making my decision, how much of a risk am I willing to take? All right. What is the consequence of making a right choice? What is the consequence of making a wrong choice? And one of the interesting things about adults is that if you're going to make a choice that everyone around you might deem to be something that you shouldn't do, and you say, I am prepared and ready to deal with the responsibility of my choice. And I am constantly using myself as a guinea pig. One day I left my home and I had this checkered black and white pants. And I liked it and I wanted to wear that pants today. I was in the mood to wear it. And then I took out this purple and brown dress shirt, which did not match, but for some reason I liked it. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? I like this. I think it looks good. And I'm going to go out there. And if anybody laughs at me, I will laugh with them and I will have fun. And I didn't care. And so much so someone saw me and they said to me, I don't like how you look today. Your clothes don't match. And I said, it's okay. I don't care. I like it. Next point, generate solutions. In generating solutions, that is where your level of creativity comes, where you begin to brainstorm, or you would have already started brainstorming ideas. How can you possibly deal with that? Now, of course, my example is a very simplistic example, but you have more complicated situations, right? So you ask yourself this questions. Have I had a similar problem in the past? Was my approach or decision successful? Has this ever happened to me? What are the possible solutions to the problem? What are the different things that I can do? And you weigh the different things that you can do. What if you were to go with A, what would be the possible outcome of A? If you were to go B, what would be the possible outcome of B? Now, some of you might think that this is very simple, that's straightforward, but you would be surprised that there are a lot of people who do not think in that direction. Make a list. So we're still looking at generating solutions. So you make a list of options and you can discuss it with people that you trust, or people whose opinions that you value are important to you. Because sometimes we need a little help in our decision making process, but you got to have a sound mind. And the last step to making a good choice is to make your decision. Again, you examine your options, you think carefully about them, and then you make a choice. And it is easier to make a choice now because you'd have went through all of the processes and all of the steps that I just discussed. So I want to speak now about the role of judgment. What role would judgment, or what role does judgment play when making a decision? So first of all, what is judgment? It is really a person's ability to make a sensible and wise decision or conclusion with knowledge or relevant knowledge. And of course, with it comes experience. And like I said, you may not always have the experience, and that's okay. You have to build that experience to get that experience, right? Now, exactly what does good judgment mean? So I would like to invite anyone right now to please unmute your mic. I would love to hear from you, and I just want you to tell me, what do you think is good judgment?
Uh, well, a decision that you would
So can
make.
I interrupt you? Before you speak, just state your name so that we know who's speaking, and then share. I would love to hear from you.
Okay. I'm Felicia Gall,
Hi,
and
Felicia.
hello. Good judgment would be where you weigh the pros and the cons. Are you willing to live with the consequences after? And what is best for you, or what is best for the result that you want? I think you judge
All
the
right.
situation, you determine.
All right. Very good. Very good. Felicia, thank you for that. Is there anybody else? One more person? What do you think is good judgment? So Felicia spoke about weighing the cons, pros and cons. I'm still waiting patiently. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, this is Colleen Harry.
Hi,
You
Colleen. We
hearing
can
me?
hear you. You may speak.
Yeah, to me I think a judgment is if you have a situation and you need to deal with it, you're not just think about yourself, you think about how it will affect others. You make judgment based on not just the effects that it will have on you, but the effects that it will have on probably your family, your work, your household in general.
All right. So that is also true. So I want to thank you and Felicia for that. And I just want to add to what you would have said, exactly what good judgment means. So all of the things that you said, to help make that come alive, you have to listen carefully when there's a problem or when you have a situation. And listening does not always mean listening to if the problem is something that engages you and someone else. But listening could simply be doing your research and paying attention to what exists around you to help you to make a wise choice. Considering feedback, providing feedback, being objective and not very subjective and making it personal to you, but thinking outside, broadening your perspective. So, broadening your perspective is basically how you think about the problem or the situation, looking at different avenues, different ways of looking at it, right? Foreknowledge. Foreknowledge is being able to think of the outcome of that problem or that situation. So if someone says something to you, sometimes good judgment means thinking quickly, being able to think, if I say this or if I do that, what will possibly happen? And sometimes there's nothing wrong in what you say, which brings me to my next point, but it's about your delivery, especially if that delivery might affect somebody else. So for example, like I gave you that example when that individual saw me with my crazy color combination that day, and I said I didn't care. I didn't say it in a disrespectful way. I was actually saying I don't care and laughing. But maybe if I had said it in an aggressive way, that person might have felt bad or embarrassed, and that was not and is never my objective. All right. So this is basically what it means to make a good decision. So making a decision is largely influenced by your ability to engage your brain or thinking. So a key part of making decisions is to think critically and to think creatively. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is your ability to use facts, evidence, or data that is related to an issue, problem, or concern without influence of personal opinions, biases, or feelings when making a choice. So, what this is simply telling you, when you think about critical thinking, you always hear your instructors in the university speak about developing critical thinkers and critical thinkers. So, critical thinking says that when someone presents something to you and tells you, I think you should eat this or I think you should buy that, you question it and you said, why should I eat a pineapple as opposed to a piece of chicken? What evidence, what data do you have? What does the research say? Who are the people or who are the persons who would have come up with that research? What would have influenced you wanting to eat that chicken or wanting to eat that fish, that pineapple? Sorry. I know it's a very simple example, but again, critical thinking, if I were to put it in my own words, is all about asking questions about the problem and trying to think about it from all different angles. So let me break it down to you some more. The importance of critical thinking helps you to identify biases, false beliefs, prejudices, and habits. So sometimes you have a problem or there is a challenge, and there might be false beliefs, there might be a prejudice, there might be biases, and there might be even be habits that can flaw the choices or decisions that you will make. So that is why it's important to pay attention. The importance of critical thinking. It helps you to be more creative. It allows you to be able to solve problems in also a more systematic way. And by systematic way, not a way that is emotional or subjective, but a way that is more objective. And it allows you to reflect and think about yourself. So again, I am working this in everything I have been saying, what you've been listening to. Being an adult is a lot about thinking, thinking, thinking. The choices that you make today determines what happens tomorrow, right? And what happens in your far future and as well as your near future, which is tomorrow. So what does critical thinking allow you to do? Critical thinking, it allows you to appreciate and identify the importance of ideas, because you will, in that process of breaking down and dissecting, you will ask questions. You might go do some research. You might have to speak to different people, to understand what that thing is or more about that situation to help you to make a decision. It's like dating. And many of you on campus might have puppy love or maybe serious love, puppy love. And you see this guy or you see this girl, or let's use an example of a guy. So a guy sees a girl and he thinks she's cute or he thinks she's amazing. He sees her singing or something, and he calls his friends and he starts asking his friends questions about her. So who is she? Where is she from? What is she studying? How long has she been studying? What kind of person she is? How have you interacted with her? What do you know about her? Does she have a good reputation? There are lots of questions you would ask. So that is an example of thinking critically, where you ask questions and you engage your mind. So what does critical thinking allow you to do? Of course, I said question things. It allows you to make a difference between facts and opinions, because sometimes when a problem or situation is presented to you, there are opinions, and some people could have such strong opinions that the opinions come across as facts, when in actuality, it is an opinion and not a fact. Understand various perspectives. You've heard me say that in lots of different ways, because understanding different perspectives allows you to open your mind. That is important. Reflecting on beliefs and values, paying attention to belief systems and paying attention to values to understand why a person might, not why a person, but rather what might be the possible outcome of that situation. So tips on how to think critically. Some tips on how to think critically. Know what you are trying to make a decision about. make sure that the information you gather is unbiased, because earlier when we spoke about decision making and I said make decisions, you also want to make sure that that decision is unbiased, and that is where more critical thinking comes in. Ask questions, relevant questions, think carefully about the good outcomes and the bad outcomes, and evaluate different perspectives, and then you reevaluate those perspectives again. That is what it is all about. Now, don't put pressure on yourself, because you might sit there and you might tell yourself, ask yourself, am I a critical thinker? What am I not doing? Maybe I may never be that way. Do not do that to yourself. Again, today is all about we discussing skills, different types of skills. And a skill is something that you do. And for you to get good or better at a skill or improve at a skill, you constantly have to practice it. And when it comes to adulting and when it comes to decision making, it means that you have to think a particular way, which is what I've been discussing with you. So to really critical thinking, there is about asking questions. And here are some questions, critical thinking questions to ask yourself. I'm going to go through it quickly. What is the basis of your argument? What evidence do you have to support your points? Why do you believe the information is accurate? Why do you think this would apply to the problem? How urgent is the problem? Is it time bound? How much time do I have to come up with a solution? And there are sometimes, and that is where the art of decision making comes into play in critical thinking. When you have to make an important decision quickly, that is when you know that you are growing in your critical thinking skills or your decision making ability. Remember, it is a process, and don't be hard on yourself. In time, you will develop it, you get better at it. What resources do I have to work with? Am I making any assumptions? How much can I trust my assumptions or these assumptions? What conclusions can I draw from the information that I have evaluated? What is the best course of action? Do I need to make any adjustments? So this is what critical thinking is all about. So far, we have spoken about the art of decision making. We just finished off You Better Think, right? You Better Think was only talking about critical thinking. And now we're going to go into the third aspect of this presentation, which is who are you? Who are you? If I were to ask you the question, who are you? And I want you to unmute your mics. Quickly, when you unmute your mic, just state your name and just answer the question. But I want you to unmute your mics. And if I were to ask you, who are you? I just want you to tell me, is that an easy question? Is that a challenging question? Anybody, a few persons, I would love to hear from you.
I would say it's a difficult question. And
It's difficult, is
especially
it,
when you're
Felicia?
not really sure. Yeah.
Okay, I remember
Especially
the
when
point.
you're not really sure.
Okay, so it's not difficult, but it's challenging.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. I want to hear from at least two other people. I want to make sure that there are people listening to the presentation and I'm not a robot just talking. So I want to hear from two more people, please. I'm begging you.
My name is Marissa,
Hi,
and I
Marissa.
would say that it's a very difficult question to answer.
It's difficult. All right, that's fair. I like your honesty. I like your level of honesty. Thank you. Let me hear from one more person. I've heard from two females. Do we have any males in this presentation? Gentlemen, I would like to hear from one male.
Yeah,
Do you think?
sorry,
Yes, thank
Francis
you.
here.
Who?
I would say it is a difficult question that kind of takes time for you to try and figure out and develop exactly who you are. Because from a young age, you might say that you're this person, but as you grow up and get older, your perspective change. So it's kind of difficult to have a set thing to find out who you are. Yeah.
All right, that's fair. And thank you. Thank you for that contribution. It was lovely hearing your voices and hearing from you. So you are right. Who I am is not always an easy question. I remember years ago, I was given an assignment. It was a psycho tab, and I had to ask questions about myself. And I was like, this looks so cute. This looks so nice. But when I actually sat down to do it, I realized that it took me way longer than I thought. And I had to call my mother and some friends to ask them questions about myself to make sure that I was not being biased and I was being true and real as well. So the journey of being aware of yourself is one that causes you to take a deep look at your passions, your doubts, your insecurities, your strengths, your weaknesses, your deepest fears, and your values. It also allows you to question your highest purpose. And like I said earlier, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher who was the one who said, "To know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom." And that is a very deep and that is a very heavy statement. Now, when you understand who you are, your why, you're able to make better decisions. So your who and your why directs you to your purpose. Your purpose provides you with the lens by which to make choices. I think I need to say this again. Your who and your why directs you to your purpose, and your purpose provides you with lenses or the lens by which to make choices. And that process all begins with self awareness. All right. Now, let me just take a pin in here and mention this about purpose. I don't believe um, in creating your purpose, really. I believe in the concept of discovering your purpose. I think that from a Christocentric philosophical or SDA philosophical standpoint, we are all created unique in the image of the creator who created each and every one of us with a purpose, and we have a why. All right. And we are wonderfully and fearfully made. We are smart, we are rational people. And there's something that I can do that you can't do like me. And there's something that you can do that I can never get like you. And I think that that is one of the things that you have to keep in mind. Now, the journey of purpose and discovering your purpose, just like is tied also to your level of self-awareness. And it is something that takes time. It is not something you will get right away. There are some people, they are able to decipher very early what their purpose is. And there's some people it is difficult, it takes time. And there's some people they are already living their purpose, but they are not able to see it in that way. And they could only connect the dots looking back in retrospect. So looking back at your life, looking back at how you've been living your life, what you've been doing, and where all of those things have been directing you and taking you to. And at that point, you're able to coin it and get an aha moment. And that is always a beautiful experience. So again, it is something that takes time. So be patient. You're not going to figure it out in one day, in 6 months, in 5 months, but be patient and be wise. So let's go back to talking about what is self-awareness. So simply put, right. Simply put, self-awareness is your ability to be aware of your choices or your actions, your thoughts and your thinking, right? Your ability to be aware of your choices and your thoughts or how you think. Now, this journey of self-awareness has the ability to be very, or potential to be very beneficial to you. And what does it entail? It entails an awareness of how you interact with other people. It entails understanding what causes you to tick. Example, what makes you angry, what makes you sad. Understanding how others perceive you. There are many people, they do not understand how people perceive them. You think of yourself or your life or who you are. Let's talk about who you are. You think about who you are in a particular way, but how you come across to people or who you think you are to people, it really is not like that. So when you are able to understand how or perceive how others perceive you, how you come across to people, that makes a world of a difference. And that is part of what adulting is all about. Understanding how you come across to others. So the importance of self-awareness. Why is self-awareness important? So it is important for several reasons. Better relationships or healthier relationships. When you understand yourself and you know who you are, you know what you like, you know your why, what you can live with, what is a deal breaker, what you cannot live with, what people who come into your personal space who could positively impact it, what people who come into your personal space and who's going to drain it. About 10 years ago, one of my sisters, older sisters, she was getting married. And I was surprised, and I said, wow, you really getting married? And she said, one day you're gonna get married, don't worry about it. And we were being silly. And I was asking, I said, but how do you know that you really want to be with that individual or that man for the rest of your life? I said, wouldn't you get bored? Like, do you think you don't think you're too young to make that decision? And she was laughing, and she said many things, but one of the things that I can clearly remember that stuck in my brain a few years ago, she said to me, if she said, Sadia, if you were getting married and you were dating this guy rather, and he had an annoying habit of constantly digging his nose. She was very dramatic with her example. He constantly digs his nose, right? She said, would you be able to live with that for the rest of your life? So she said, you have to pay attention, get to know the person, and ask questions. And I'm sharing this with you because I think it's important. Many times you think you want something, but that thing that you want is going to be detrimental for your life and your well-being and your mental health and lots of other aspects of your life. But you only look at one thing and you tell yourself yes. So some of us pretend with ourselves. Sometimes we are not real with who we are. We're not being true to ourselves. And one of the first aspects of adulting 101 is to be able to be honest with yourself and to be true to yourself. And if you can, and that's also the first aspect of honesty. Honesty begins with you. And if you cannot be honest with yourself, then how can you be honest with other people? How can you be honest about what you want to do and what you want to be and what you want to accomplish in life? Let me give you an example number two. Earlier this week, I had an interaction with a friend, a so-called friend. We parted ways. I'm not going into the story, though I know you'd love to hear the story. And I was telling a very, very, very close friend who's like family about it. And I told him what I said to the individual. And he said to me, you're very brave. But he also said that he admire my ability to be honest and not pretend and not say something that I don't mean because it made me feel uncomfortable. And sometimes we have to do that. But again, your delivery and your how. Again, we're talking about the importance of self-awareness. So when you are self-aware, it gives you a more fulfilling life. It gives you good insight into understanding how you think and the direction that you can possibly go in. So for example, and I like to use the example of relationships because I think that we human beings, we find our essence through relationships. Think about life in a world without no relationships. And I'm not talking about romantic relationship. I'm talking about any type of relationship, whether it's your parents, your cousins, your friends, your co-workers, the people in your community, relationships understanding and being aware. It is very, very important. And the relationships that you choose makes a big difference. So you really have to be able to be honest and be aware. If you're not aware of you will not be able to make a wise choice. So back to the example I was thinking of. If you recognize that you have a friend and that friend wants to do things or go places that you are not into, but you really like that person, then you really got to ask yourself, what is your value system? And if I continue going this place or hanging out with that individual over time, how might that influence me and impact me? Now, of course, everybody's different. The way something might impact me, it might impact you differently. But you have to think along those lines and make choices. So when you're an adult and you make choices, the choices that you make will not always be pretty. You wouldn't always be happy about it. And sometimes you will have to make decisions that you don't want to make. But at the end of it all, it is the right decision and it has benefits in the future and not the here and now. And you have to take the grind and you have to make that decision. Understanding yourself helps you to understand your body. Now, the reason why I put understanding your body, I'm thinking about it in the realm of stress. Stress. When we are stressed out and when you have problems and situations, it causes stress. When you are sick and you have illnesses or you have pathogens in your body, or foreign substances in your body that's causing you to be ill, you have to be able to pay attention to your body and read your body. There are many people who are stressed and they can't even tell that they're stressed out because they're not even aware and they can't even pay attention to their body. So it's very, very, very important. It makes a difference. How do you become more self-aware? How do you become more self-aware? Now, self-awareness, I keep saying it and I'm reiterating because I want you to get it. I'm like a drill today. It is all about asking yourself questions. And sometimes we don't like to ask ourselves questions because many people don't like to think, because thinking is a skill. So you're developing that skill today, or I'm adding to that skill. So some questions to help you to understand yourself or be more self-aware. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What turns me on? What turns me off? What do I fear the most in my life? What do I typically feel most frustrated about? What do I enjoy doing? What is my pet peeve? And by pet peeve, what is it that I ultimately can't stand? There are some people, they do not like people staring at them, and that makes them uncomfortable. What makes me sad? What do I value the most? What are my career goals? What are my beliefs? So again, it's all about asking yourself questions. So now we are moving into the last and the fourth segment of today's presentation. And I am calling it, I have control. I have control. Paul Meyer, he says this, he says, productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused efforts. And it's on the screen. I'm allowing you to read it silently and think about it, and then we move on. All right. That is a very loaded and heavy quote. There's a lot to be said about it, but we've been talking about it, hence I'm not going to go into it. So now I want to speak about self-management, or the skill of self-management. Now, self-management is critical for your personal success and all types of success in your life. So what is self-management? It is your ability to take responsibility for your actions and to do things to the best of your ability. So again, this word responsible has come up quite a few times. So Adulting 101 says that you have to be responsible. And being responsible says that you are prepared to deal with the good and the bad outcomes of the choices that you make. Self-management skills. So self-management skills are skills that equip you with the ability to be more productive and to improve what you do. So why is this such an important skill? This is an important skill because it teaches you to be more productive. There are many people who procrastinate, and procrastination is a big problem. So when you're able to utilize your time wisely and capitalize on your 24 hours in one day, that helps you to be more productive and get more out of your time and more value out of your day, and draws you closer and helps you in your why and what you're doing, whether that is going to a class or any aspect of your life. It allows you to set goals and take initiative for your life. So you have to be responsible for your life. One of the things is that some of us, unfortunately, we live in a world that is imperfect, and we are imperfect people. And some of us would have had terrible experiences growing up. Some of you might have had beautiful childhood experiences, and some of you, your experiences growing up were very tender. It was very rough, and you've had some scars that you still deal with. So being an adult and being a responsible adult says that you need to accept the fact that I did not have the best start or perfect start. My life might have been dysfunctional. Was it my fault? Was it not my fault? Whether or not it was your fault, which most times it isn't as a child, but whether or not it was your fault or not, one of the things that you have to do is take responsibility for the here and now and not for the here and then. So you take a responsibility for the here and now to influence the here and then. All right. So responsibility is a big and important aspect of being an adult. Um, it helps you to approach yourself and your life better. So what is the art of self-management? Being someone who has mastered the art of self-management, of managing yourself, means that you have taken responsibility for several areas of your life. Number one, setting goals for your life. What do you want for the future? Now, you cannot have a goal if you do not have a vision for your life. And you want to have a vision for your family life. You want to have a vision for your career. You want to have a vision for your spiritual life. Where is this going? What is the point, right? So ever so often you have to stop and ask yourself, am I living a life that is consistent with my value system, with my beliefs, or what I believe in? How is that impacting me? How is that influencing me? Am I living that or am I not living that? And if your answer is no, then you have to reevaluate. You got to think of your goals, and you need to have SMART goals, the acronym SMART, S-M-A-R-T. Your goals need to be specific. So you don't want goals that are very long. You want a goal that is specific and to the point. You want a goal that is measurable. I'm actually thinking of the acronym whilst we speak. I'm writing it down. This was not my presentation, right? You want it to be measurable. You want it to be something that is attainable. So let's go back to measurable. So for example, let's say you want to, let me use the example of the reading books. You tell yourself that you want to expand your mind, you want to expand your vocabulary, you want to expand your knowledge pool. So you ask yourself, what area would I like to do some more reading? All right. How many books do you anticipate reading? Do you want to read 10 or 20 or 15 books? And how many months will you give yourself to read those 10 or 15 books? Or in the year 2020 or 2021 is coming up, think of goals, right? Is it attainable in the sense that will you read 5 books? Will you read 5 books in 1 week? That is difficult, right? Because as a university student, you have a lot of things to do. And sometimes it's difficult to read 5 books, but you could read 1 book in 1 book per week or 1 book every other week. But you still want to put a challenge on yourself. You don't want to make it too easy. So again, it has to be realistic. And like I said, it is something that has to be time bound. So setting goals for yourself, knowing what you want. Knowing what you want is tied back to knowing who you are, being self-aware. Your ability to motivate yourself, responsibility for motivating yourself. How many of you are able to be driven, right? What is it that you love to do? Is it that you get excited about it and then you get distracted and you stop? Is it that you have a goal of reading those books? What motivates you to read that? Why do you want to read it? So these are things that you have to think about. Your ability to cope with stress. Stress is a fact of life. It is something that we human beings all share or we all have in common. It's something that you don't always have control over more often than not. The idea is not to say I will never be stressed, I will have no stress, but the idea is to balance, to coexist, to know how to manage stress. So to employ strategies that helps you to cope with stress. So what are the things that you do? So strategies, anything that you can do, something that is good, right? Anything that you can do that will help you cope with that stress. How able are you, how much are you able to do that? So some people, it's easy for them, and sometimes you always need a little help, but some people, overall, they can hold it together, and some people, it is difficult. So that is something you realize that you would have to work on. Keeping yourself accountable, that is very important. How do you keep yourself accountable? Or rather, what does it even mean to keep yourself accountable? If you say that I am going to do this, you need to make sure that you stick to doing that. All right. Let me use myself again. I'm a guinea pig today. I work out. I work out practically 5 days per week, and I share exercise videos weekly. And I have my vision and my objectives in why I do it, to motivate and encourage people and that sort of thing. And one of the days this week, I don't post videos every day. And it was quite funny because one of the days this week, someone messaged me and they said, but I didn't see any videos day before yesterday. What's going on? And I said, no, I don't post videos every day, because they automatically thought that something was happening with me, or there was something. So again, we got to be accountable. Whatever it is that you say you want to live your life by, what you want to do, your values, your goals, your objectives, you need to make sure that you stick to it and pay attention to yourself. And again, keeping yourself accountable is asking yourself questions, asking yourself questions. Am I far from this? Am I close to this? What has been taking my time? Why don't I do it? Sit and evaluate. Being organized. Being organized, at least for me, I think it's very important because I'm very structured and I like to be organized in what I do. Now, there's some people who work and they claim to be able to work on the not being organized, but I think that it is important for you to organize yourself, know and plan and do things properly as much as you can. And the last skill for mastering self-management is managing your time wisely, right? Do you prioritize your time? Do you set time aside for school, for pleasure, for fun, for hanging out with your friends, for family? So it's important it is important for there to be balance. I want you to remember that in being an adult, everything I've said here sounds good, and it is, and sometimes you will get it and sometimes you'll not get it right away. But the most important thing that you can do is to practice it and keep it in your mind. How do you make it come alive? You look at the notes that you've written and you try to remember it and apply it. If you don't apply it to your experiences, this information makes absolutely no sense. Okay. So you don't want to just sit here and listen, but you want to take that information and now think about yourself and make it applicable. How you're going to do that is a process, because sometimes it's more subjective than objective as it relates to your specific situation. So I just want to thank you for listening to this presentation on being an adult. This is the end. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to share your questions. Or if it's not a question, if everything is very clear and you have a comment or something you would like to share, we are excited and ready to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Excellent presentation, and you kept within time. I think we had so many things to have us thinking. Um, I
Thank
think
you.
one of the first things that really struck me came at the beginning of the presentation, and it really spoke to me, where you said that Cornell University has indicated that we make 266 decisions about eating, about food. I was like, that explains it. Why is food always on my mind? So that really stood out to me. But you spoke
It
about
did.
decision making, making good choices, the role of judgment, importance of critical thinking, um, asking who are we and how do we manage ourselves. And I really want to say thank you, because I think all the personal stories really resonated, but also made what you had to say very relatable and made the conversation very intimate. So
Thank you.
students, any of you have any questions or comments on, I mean, I'm not even going to say my age, but I have been an adult for a while, and there were things that I recognized that I could implement in terms of how I think about myself and so on. So we are opening for any questions from the audience, our lovely audience.
And Dr. Joseph, Mrs. Ellis here. I am thinking too that I wish I had gotten
Hi.
some of this information that Miss Moore is now giving when I was transitioning to that whole adult lifestyle. Because I think, in terms of my judgment and decision making, that there are a lot of things I would have done differently had I been privy to some of this information that our students are getting today.
I totally agree. Oh, um,
Hi, good morning, Miss again.
Hi, good morning.
I just want to know, I saw you was recording the session. I just want to know if this would be available to us, because I'm currently at work and some of the things that I was able to grasp and some of the things I wasn't.
Okay, so Dr.
Yes.
Mrs. Ellis said yes, it's recorded. So you should get access at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. She said we will send the link in the chat. So
you can email Miss Ellis so that she can at ellis@usc.edu.tt and she will send you the link. Once you
right.
email her, ellis@usc.edu.tt.
I guess everybody's thinking.
Yes.
It makes you think. It really makes you think. It's all about thinking.
Students, probably you can just give us an idea, give us some of your own reflections in terms of your whole transition into adulthood and what the experience has been like for you. Some of you that you are in university now, we're not on campus right now, so those of you who may have been accustomed to your parents dropping you off to school, etc., you know, when you're in university on your own, you have to commute, you have to make decisions, about the type of friends, you know, about studying, you know, prioritizing. So maybe you could tell us, even though right now school is virtual, you can give us an idea, maybe 2 3 of you, and don't let me start calling names, volunteer, as to how it has been for you.
Yes, I see Felicia, you have your mic unmuted. So I'm assuming you Felicia is one of my students. I'm proud to.
Hi. 2 points. One, while Ms. Moore was speaking, is that asking the question who we are, and sometimes we are afraid to know. I also was thinking that we are afraid of the answer, to know what we are about and what we really want. Some of the answers we're afraid, so we don't really go in depth to thinking about it. Because if you're to think, who am I? And then within thinking, who am I? You compare yourself to someone else, you feel less of who you are. You feel less, I think, in some cases. And another point, which I will get back to you on.
She's at work.
Well, Felicia, that was a very deep response. There's so many things we can unload and unpack from that. That sometimes we are afraid of who we are because we might feel that we don't match up to certain standards. But we do have to sit and think about it, because if at that point we are not moving towards the person we want to be, then it's good to know and then figure out then what is the way forward so that you can meet that goal. Okay, so I got your name earlier on, but your email is Cherry. So would you like to make up?
Hi, Miss. It's Carleen Harry. So the email becomes Cherry. But Miss, I enjoyed it. It was very informative. I know you're hearing a little noise in the background. I have some staff members here. It was very informative, and the question, asking yourself the question, who are you? I believe is a very important question. I mean, self-reflection is very important, because sometimes some people don't like to be by themselves. They don't like to spend time with themselves. But spending time with yourself and understanding who you are as an individual is very important, because sometimes when people tell you, listen, this is the type of person you are, you doubt in them. Listen, this is not me, right? But when you really think about it, and some of the things that you may do consciously and unconsciously, it causes you to stop and really think about yourself as an individual and the type of person that you want to be. So it was very informative to me, especially prioritizing. I have a lot of that to do, especially where university is I have a lot of prioritizing to do and making sure that you finish your assignments on time and all of that. But it's a rush for us, adjusting from just not just adulthood, but also putting stuff in order, you know. So it was very informative and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy you enjoyed it and it was beneficial.
Yes. Can I just put in one more thing in regards to adulting? What I have come to realize before, if I'm getting trouble with work on a secondary school and so on in my life, I would not ask. I would just be there stressing, trying to get through and thinking people ain't gonna help, they're gonna feel this, they'll feel that. But what I have come to realize is the worst they can say is no, and that points to their character. So when you ask, you get out there. You need to do what's best for you in that case, right? And asking for some help and some assistance and so on isn't wrong. That's part of adulting, taking responsibility, taking the initiative to go forward, be bold, I believe. That's what I got.
I agree. That's so important.
Okay, so if
I
any,
would love to hear. I would love to hear from if there are any males in the group. I would like that person to reflect on their journey to adulthood. And I think I also saw Khadija Mohammed. I'd like to hear from her too.
Yes, she
All right, so for me, um, going into adulthood, I'm a person who, well, before I was a person who used to procrastinate a lot, play a lot of games, hang out with the wrong group of people. But coming into university, I realized this is where I'm at. This is real right now. I have to like try and make things better for me because playing games ain't gonna lead me anywhere. So I have to make sure I do my work, hang out with the good friends who will help me to better myself each day and have a good life. So yeah, the I'm still in the works of trying to figure out who I am, but think I'm getting there with the help of God. God is helping me greatly find out who I am. I'll always pray to him, ask him for help to guide me and whatnot. But I know by God's grace I will get there. Yeah, that'll be my sibling.
Yeah, and Josiah, I wanted to say something. I'm happy that you spoke about God because it was in my mind to say, but I just got so caught up speaking about everything else. But I want to remind you that in adulting and making decisions, and I speak from a Christocentric as the philosophical standpoint, that you need to always remember to stay close to God. Because when you look at the word of God, it says that wisdom without understanding is nothing, and that understand that wisdom is God. So one of the things is that as you make choices, as you make decisions, as you think critically, you pray and you ask God to guide you, to bless your mind, to give you the mindset that you need to be able to make wise choices when you encounter that situation. So knowing how to pray and also having a relationship with God, all right? And having a relationship with God is spending time with Him, spending time reading His Word, spending time studying. Some students will think that the Bible is boring and difficult. And based on the version of the Bible, it can come across that way sometimes, but you have to find a version that speaks to you. One of the versions that I have the King James, but I also have the Clear Word. And I think it's a beautiful translation because it makes it come alive and it helps you to understand it in a more common language. So that is a start to it. Start by reading the book of Proverbs. There's lots of information on wisdom and life and how to live. And when you read it, you engage in meditation. When I talk about meditation, I'm not talking about transcendental meditation, but I'm talking about Christian meditation where you read something, you stop and you ponder and you think about it. That also is one of the most important aspects of adulting and decision making and all of that.
Okay, any more comments or questions? Okay, so if we don't have any more, I thank you for being here. But before we depart, we'll ask Miss Judy and Guy to close us in a word of prayer.
Did she say Miss Guy?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was a little distracted. So let's bow our heads and pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you, dear Lord, for your goodness and your mercy to us. We thank you for being with us during this session. We thank you for the very informative information that has been given. And Lord, I pray in a special way for each student. I pray for the presenter and all the others who are present. Thank you for speaking to us through Miss Moore in a very practical, informative session. And we give you praise and thanks. And as the students go on their academic journey, dear Lord, help them to continue to trust you and to believe that you can guide them and take them through any situations that may arise. So thank you again and bless us, and may you be with all of us as we go through this day. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Miss Moore.
Bye.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Beverly Ellis, for
Bye. Thank you.
this. And thank you, every student who made the time to come and join us. So have a pleasant Sabbath and a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Same to you, ma'am.
Bye,
Bye.
students. Take care. Keep safe. Study hard.
Yes.